Hello, everyone, and welcome back to the Cup of Joe with Joe and Joe podcast. I am your host, Joe, and with me, as always, is my wonderful co-host, Joe.
It's anime time, baby. We got the second part of Jujutsu Kaisen, and man, we're gonna fly through this. Not really, kind of, maybe. We're tired. It's gonna be good. I love anime. So do you. Throw your hands up. Woo woo woo.
My hands are up. They're up.
Let me hear the woo.
I'm having a great time.
Let me hear the woo woo.
Oh, woo.
Now let me hear the ooh woo.
No.
Damn it.
You're not gonna catch you. I might be tired, Joe, but I'm not that tired. You're not gonna catch me doing that shit. So, hello everyone. Welcome back. Jujutsu Kaisen Part 2. If you missed Part 1, go back there's an anime playlist on the channel. Go back, find Part 1. We talk about episode 1 through 8. It's a wonderful time. It's really beautiful. It's life-changing. I swear to God. 4 out of 10 would recommend. Today, Part 2, going through episode 9 through 16. So, buckle up, baby, because here we go.
Episode 9, we get introduced to the character known as Junpei, which I don't believe he was introduced earlier, but Junpei, he's a boy, and he skips school to go see a movie, because he's like, man, fuck school. And we get his backstory, that he gets bullied a lot, like, serious bullies. And in this episode, the bullies are killed in the theater, and he sees them get killed, and he's like, what the fuck? And he follows the person that killed him, and we find out that it's Mahito. And Mahito befriends Junpei and starts showing him like his secret lair and all the powers he has, and Junpei's not creeped out at all, which at that point I knew I was going to be concerned about this kid. And
Yep.
in addition to Junpei being introduced, we have one of my favorite characters, my boy Nanami, gets introduced in this episode, and he's fucking cool. He's like the same, I guess, faculty level of Gojo, but like not as strong. Still very, very strong. And he starts working with Itadori, and he's like, all right, we're going to do some detective stuff. We're going to look into this whole movie murder thing. And you find out that they end up fighting these spirits that were near there, but they find out that the spirits were human and that they were transfigured into curses, which kind of messes up Itadori. He's like, oh no, I killed a human. Like, what the fuck? But I don't know. We get a little bit more ethical with Itadori in this episode.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. Then we move on to episode numero 10, which I have, what did I title it? Oh yeah, it's, I call him Kento, because you call it, what did you call him? Glasses Man.
Nanami?
Nanami, yeah. I call him Kento, because it's easier for me to remember. But him versus Mahito, that was really cool, seeing how some of that stuff works, especially when you learn how Mahito's curse works, where it's like he can mold souls, and then you see just like how his body moves and like some of the stuff that he uses, like when Kento looks down or Nanami looks down, and he just sees like what he's standing on, it's just the faces in them. You're just like, oh good God, I don't what? Yeah, it's like I don't want to see any of that stuff.
Yeah, Mahito's fucked up. I kind of like him and hate him. Very, you know, you made a good villain when you'd done that. So Mahito gets some progress, a little bit of development in this. We learn more about his powers. Seeing Nanami fight was fucking sick, and I thought it was going to be like when he did that whole timer thing where it was like, all right, you have like 5 minutes, and then I'm kind of like, that's it. And I was like, oh, he's just going to leave or something. But no, he takes off the tie. He's like, all right, now I'll use my full strength. And I'm like, oh, yeah. Boy. And he fucks Mahito. And I loved it because I actually was not expecting him. I thought it was going to be like, okay, I need to leave. Like, I'm off the clock. Because he's that type of dude, like his personality. It's like, oh, 5 o'clock hit? All right, I'm done working. I thought it was going to be like that. But no, the exact opposite.
Yes, exact opposite. He's like, no, now I'm in overtime, okay? Now I'm getting paid more. And by paid more, I mean my power is coming out to its full potential.
Yeah.
So that was really cool.
And 10 and 11 kind of cross over with that, where the Nanami and Mahito fight takes a while. And in addition to that fight happening, Itadori begins to stalk Junpei because they need to kind of investigate, like what the fuck happened? Why would this kid left alone in the theater? Like, why was he not killed? and they end up becoming friends. And Itadori is like hanging out with Junpei at his house. They're talking about movies because Itadori had to watch all these movies, to control his cursed energy.
Yep.
It's a nice little thing, and I really like them becoming friends. I was like, wow, this is so heartwarming. And the mom being like, "Oh, you have a friend over," and that she's kind of like a drunk, but she's also like flirting with Itadori. I loved it. It was really
Yeah.
really funny.
It was so nice to see something like that. I was like, this is it's just cute, and yeah, you said it best, heartwarming. And I was like, it's like a modern friendship. It's like a really good modern friendship depiction in an anime. And I was like, that's just really cool. Because like so many times you see in anime, it's like, yeah, they're friends because they were like both 14-year-olds and they're off traveling the world doing whatever. It's like, no, 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 these guys just met up. Yuji pants the man in front of this guy to
Classic.
get him to go away. Classic. And then they sit down and they're just vibing out and talking about movies and doing stuff like that. And it's just really nice. And then he goes over for dinner, talks with the mom for a little bit. It's just awesome. And of course, because it's so nice, they have to fuck it up and take it away from us.
Yep. So at the very end of the episode, there's like it's almost like a CSI episode where it was like later that evening, Junpei's mother was killed. The top half of the body was found with ice bags on it, and I was like, no, God,
Please
no.
no.
I'm like, wait a minute. I thought they were gonna like somehow like it was just gonna be like dramatized. I'm like, nope, they just killed her. Holy shit.
Yep, she gone. Um, and that's kind of where what should we call it? Is that when? Yeah, it's this is the end of this episode. Also has Junpei is kind of like he gets his what should we call it? His or not powers, but his cursed energy and like abilities kind of manifest, and they're insanely fast tracked. Um, Mostly by Mahito, who helps him like bring them out with his anger. Yeah, he's kind of the Emperor Palpatine to his Anakin or whatever. And this is when I think who sets up? Does someone set up a barrier around the high school? Is it Mahito?
Yeah, it so 12 is where 12 is where so end of 11 we find out Junpei's mom is killed. 12 is where Mahito's kind of like caressing Junpei. He's like, "Oh, somebody probably left this cursed finger there. It wasn't me. And now,
Mm,
oh my goodness, they because of that your mom died. We have to go get revenge." And Junpei's like, "I'm a kill a bitch."
hmm Yeah, he's very much just like, all right, time to fuck this guy up. Um, and so they fight for a bit. Yuji ends up taking a whole lot of attacks from Junpei, mostly because he's like, I don't really want to fight you. I just kind of want to get to the bottom of this and like help you not be an asshole. Um, which Junpei's jellyfish thing is pretty cool. I gotta say, like I watching that thing go, like do its stuff, and like the fucking tentacle, like jab thing. I was like, whoa, that's kind of cool. Yuji surprisingly isn't really affected by it, which we learn why a little bit later on. At least they mention it later on as to why he's not quite that affected by it. But I'm not going to mention it here because I found out about it later. But so that was kind of cool. But then you kind of get like once they kind of like have a little bit of a recollection, then Mahito comes in and is all like, "Oh, it's another heartwarming moment. Okay, I'm gonna fuck it up again a little bit. Okay, there we go." So he just comes in and is like he transforms Junpei into some fucked little creature, and then he fucking dies. And Yuji is not happy about it.
Yeah, that was a big switch. I wasn't expecting that at all. Once Mahito realized that his plan to like get Sukuna out was gone, because he had this all planned out. It was like this big master plan ahead, and it just completely did not go the way he was planning. And Mahito's like, "Oh, interesting. This is not what I planned." Oh, and one other thing, earlier in the fight with Nanami and Mahito, I wrote down that Nanami releases his Bankai to beat Mahito
Mm-hmm.
because
That's
he
pretty much what he does.
takes off the tie, wraps it around his hand. But so yeah, Itadori gets fucking pissed and he starts beating the shit out of Mahito. And Nanami ends up showing up, and the Itadori and Nanami fight against Mahito in the school parking lot or the backyard. Awesome, awesome
It's
fight.
so great. I love it so much. It's so cool, and that spills over then into episode 13,
Hmm.
where it's just a continuation of that fight with
But something.
Yuji and Nanami. What?
But I was gonna say the big thing that happens is that Mahito uses domain expansion for the first time.
Yes, figures it out, uses domain expansion, captures Nanami inside of it, and Yuji's on the outside, like beating it, trying to force his way in. And so previously, the reason why it's so cool watching Yuji fight Mahito is because normally people don't really affect Mahito that much because he's kind of like a gelatinous thing because of his soul or whatever the fuck. Yuji, however, can directly impact his soul because he is innately aware of the presence and the shape of a soul because he currently has two residing within his body, that being his own and Sukuna's, because he's Sukuna's vessel. So when Mahito tried to touch Yuji's soul, he inadvertently also touched Sukuna's, and Sukuna was like, okay, hello, tiny peasant curse, you're in my area, get the fuck out, I'm not giving you this benefit again. And he was like, Mahito comes out and he's like, what the hell was that? So when he captures Nanami in his domain, Yuji's fighting to try and break in, and Nanami's doing some monologue about being like, oh my god, once you're inside of a domain, the hit is all but confirmed.
Yeah, he basically just accepts his death at that point.
Yeah, he's like, all right, this is it. And then all of a sudden the top of the domain cracks open and Yuji comes spilling into it, and then because he's in it, it's touching him and his soul, and then Sukuna is just like, hey bro, I mean I fucking warned you, so this is really on you. And then Mahito just like explodes into blood, like not fully explodes, but like there's just massive slashes in him because Sukuna's just like, I told you, I warned you, and he just starts cutting down Mahito and taking away so much of his strength, and I was just like, oh, that is fucking sick.
Yeah, that was, I wrote down Sukuna fucks Mahito. He's like, oh my god. He goes, do you really, you dare come to me on the day of my daughter's wedding? Oh yes. No, oh no.
You wrote Sukuna fucks Mahito, right?
Mm-hmm.
I wrote Mahito gets fucked by Sukuna.
Same thing, different day. You know how it is.
Exactly.
Yeah, so that episode ends with Mahito ends up getting away, and but he's really fucking injured, and Nanami and Yuji have like a touching moment where Nanami's like, yo man, like you just saved my life, and Yuji's like, no big deal, it was kind of all Sukuna, I didn't do shit.
Yeah, which I kind of like because he's very much like, yeah, I didn't do anything. I just broke in, and then Sukuna took care of the rest of it. So that was nice that he was just kind of like acknowledging that. But yeah, and then that's where that bit of the story ends off, which I found quite sad because it's like I thought Junpei might still come back somehow and become a friend because in the openings he's sitting there with Yuji, and I was like, oh, so this must be a character. So when we finally found him, I was like, oh, so this will be a main character, and now he's just fucking gone.
Yeah,
like, no,
they did a really good
Junpei!
job of getting your hopes up and then just destroying them.
Yeah, I was not expecting that at all. So props to you, Mappa, and whoever, like writers or whoever made the decision, because you got me. And you wouldn't have gotten me as well if I wasn't so fucking hooked on your opening and ending songs. But, I mean, it got me.
So after this happens, Mahito's like, I should probably rethink my plans. So he meets up with his allies, the fellow curses, and that weird, I guess he's a human / Jujutsu sorcerer. We don't really know much about him.
The guy with the line across his forehead, right?
Yeah. We get there have been hints throughout the episode where people mention his name. They're like, oh yeah, the Great Revolt all those years ago when he tried to do something, and you see him, but you still don't get a lot of info. It's like crumbs.
I feel like he's like he was a student.
That's what I think as well.
A master who then like defected and was like, no, the dark side though.
Exactly. I completely agree. So now Mahito's like, okay, I have a second plan. We're going to break into Jujutsu High, and we're just going to fucking kill everybody. And everybody's like, oh, I like that, Mahito. Good plan. And I'm like, okay. Doesn't seem like a good plan to me. But in this episode...
No, Gojo still exists, you fuckers. You're all going to die.
Yeah, exactly. In this episode, we get the big Yuji reveal. Which,
yes,
it's been like over 8 episodes since he's been dead. I think more.
Something like that, yeah. So like he's been dead. This is episode 14 we're talking about. And finally Gojo just brings him back and is like, it's gonna be a massive thing. Everyone's gonna love it. They're gonna fucking die for you. It's gonna be great. Everyone's gonna be super excited, getting this thing. And then when I say the cue, you're gonna pop out of this box, and then you're gonna be like, haha, I'm alive or whatever. And they do that, and it's just as cringy as you would probably expect it to be, because it's very cringy.
It is good cringy though. It made me laugh and cringe.
Yeah, intentionally cringy in the show, like between the characters, not like oh I can't believe I'm watching this, like oh haha funny because it's cringy, but yeah.
And now we move into, so this is right before the sister school exchange event, and we
Yes.
get a little look that now, since it's been revealed that Yuji's alive, the Kyoto headmaster's like, or the principal's like, hey, don't worry about the competition, just kill Yuji, and you all will be my favorite. And they're like, They didn't even question it. They're like, okay, yeah, we're just gonna kill him. Some people were like, oh, but what about the main goal? Toto's like, but I'm not doing anything you say, old man. And but most of them decide, okay, let's kill him. And I'm like, what the fuck? These kids are fucked up.
Yeah, most at this point in the show, I did not like most of the
Kyoto.
Kyoto. There it is. Yes, thank you. I didn't like most of the Kyoto students because again, my only introduction to them was fucking Mai and Toto.
Yeah.
May and Toto coming in and like they were being assholes, and I was just like, fuck these guys. Will my opinion change on them later on in the show? One will. It's not hard to guess whose if you've seen the show, but yeah. So that was it's interesting seeing those characters just be complete asshats, and then all the other like the Tokyo Jujutsu sorcerers being like, okay, you got Yuji now. How are we gonna use him? And then whatchamacallit, who's a shadow puppet man? I can't remember his name.
Let me check my notes with looking cool. We're taking our time. Where's the name, you motherfucker?
Fushiguro.
Yes, that's exactly it. See, this is the bad thing.
Yeah.
My old notes from episode 1 through 8 still have the Naruto name, so all I have is Sasuke and Kakashi everywhere. And,
Jesus.
And I'm like, uh-oh, wait a minute.
Yeah, no. So Fushiguro is just like, yeah, no, guys, he's strong. And then they're all like, yeah, no, we're all strong. We got that. He's like, no, you don't understand. Like, he's strong. And they're like, all right, just keep Toto busy then. And so he's like, okay. He's like, I don't know what the fuck that is, but I'm good with it.
I don't know what a Toto is, but sure.
Yeah, exactly. I don't know what Toto is, but you got it, guys. And so, is it...
It goes in, so it ends with like they're like ready to go for this sister school exchange event, and which is basically they have to do this competition where it's like, oh, it's either like a team event, there's like a team event, there's individuals, and it's like they released a bunch of curses in the area, and it's like whoever kills the most, or if you kill the highest level one, you automatically win, which is pretty cool. I'm like, okay, this seems actually like in the world that they exist in, I'm like, this seems like it would make sense for a jujutsu school to do something like this. So right when in episode 15, when the challenge starts, Kyoto just automatically goes after Yuji, but we get a little flashback that what? Oh my goodness, May's sister. I'm forgetting her name. It's gonna bother me. She basically says like, look, they're probably gonna try and kill Yuji, so we should be prepped for this. So Tokyo's prepared, and they end up separating all of them, and it basically just leaves Toto and Yuji together, and oh my goodness. Wow, Joe. I ship Toto and Yuji more than I've shipped anything in my entire life. Oh my god, the best bros ever.
They are some of the best fighting bros I've ever seen in my entire goddamn life. And I literally have, like, because when Yuji... I should have seen this coming. I really didn't expect it. But when Toto asks Yuji his ideal woman, and Yuji responds, you know, a tall woman with a great ass, exactly how Toto says it. And then he's like, you know, kind of similar to Jennifer Lawrence. And then Toto is just like, oh my god, and then it goes off into that like dreamscape where the aspect ratio changes and it's just like an alternate life where they're like wonderful
It,
best
it
friends.
becomes a
I was
slice of
like,
life anime for about like
it
3 minutes
does.
of just Toto and Yuji, and I'm like, wow, give me more of this.
I would watch an entire season of just slice of life with those two characters. I am not shitting you. Even like take out all the curse crap, literally just the two of them. I feel like their dynamic would be great. It's so wonderful. Um, Also in that episode, we have the witch Jujutsu sorcerer from Kyoto getting lightninged out of the sky by whatchamacallit.
Panda and Nobara.
Yeah, exactly. And I was just like, this is very funny. I like this a lot. It's just the comedic timing, or just the timing of itself of the lightning hitting her and her realizing it, and then hitting the ground. I was like, yeah, this is. I like this a lot.
Yeah, this is where all the like the other, in addition to Toto and Yuji's fight being the big like, okay, this is the main fight. All the other side fights happen, which are, spoiler alert, just as good as the Toto, maybe even better than the Toto and Yuji fight. The Toto and Yuji fight have more like emotional impact than like choreography. The choreography is still really cool, but some of these other fights are awesome. So Megumi, which is Fushiguro, he fights Noritoshi, which is a dude from another popular clan, and he does like
Yeah,
blood jujutsu. So he's a bloodbender from Avatar, and
it's weird and gross, and I don't like it.
yeah, it's really weird, but the fight's pretty sick. And again, they're hinting at this thing about Megami that like he has this like hidden power or something. And they do like there's in the fight. I'm not sure if it's in this episode or a later one. He does the whole he shows his elephant that he's able to conjure up.
I believe that's one of the later episodes.
Okay, okay, but I still feel like they still haven't revealed what his big thing is yet. So I'm
Yeah.
waiting to see what that is. And then in addition to that, so we mentioned that Panda and Nobara fight Momo, and Maki is the name of Mei's sister, and she fights Kasumi,
Yes.
which is the blonde haired with the sword. And we get a little bit of a background of Maki's backstory. So all these side fights are starting, and I'm like, oh yes, this is fucking awesome.
Yeah. So all these different things are going on. And then like in episode 16, it's still the sister exchange event. So it's just the continuation of all that stuff from 15. All the fights are continuing to go on. This is where Toto really starts being a professor to Yuji, and he's teaching him all about how cursed. He's like, all right, your punch, it's cool, but it's not going to be great, especially since now I can just avoid it. And Yuji's like, oh shit. And he's like, no, 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 I'm going to teach you because I want you to be strong. And so he teaches him how to like actually think about cursed energy flowing through his body. And I'm like, oh my god, this is so cool. And this is also the episode where we see Panda versus the
Mekamaru.
which yeah, I robot versus Panda. That's all I wrote down. So yeah, that guy. But this is where we learn more about what Panda actually is because I'm like, is he just a panda? No, he's a cursed corpse mutation. And I was like, that is interesting. Cool. You established something early on. You had this character here, and you didn't explain what the fuck they were, and then you explain what they were by using the stuff that you already. I'm like, yes, cool. This is what I want from a show that's like distilling all this awesome shonen stuff down. It's like, all right, we know all the tropes, and we know that sometimes we like to retcon things like 100 episodes later. But for this, nah. Episode 16, you get it, and you're just like, fuck yeah, thank you so much. And so it's cool to see that he's the cursed corpse mutation. He's got the three different modes, the three different hearts or whatever. And I just have during the fight he goes Super Saiyan because he's using the gorilla heart core, and I'm just like, this is really fucking cool.
Yeah, yeah, this episode is great because we get a continuation of Toto and Yuji where it's still a fight, but if anything it's more of a sparring session. Toto's like, I'm not killing this dude, he's my best bro. And Yuji's like, I have a lot to learn from this guy. And they really do become friends, and it's really cool. And by far the best part of the Sister School Exchange event, which we talk about more in, it's going to be in part 3 of this series, but
Yeah.
at this beginning part, it's by far the best part. It's super entertaining, it's funny, it's heartwarming, it's cool. So that's awesome. The Mekumaru actually knocks out Nobara, and so Nobara's like knocked out, and Mekumaru's like, oh shit, and he ends up fighting Panda and Mechamaru end up fighting. We get Mechamaru's backstory where it's not a person in a suit. He's actually controlling him from a distance.
Yep.
So his backstory is really cool. I could get into it a little bit more, but it's kind of complicated. Basically, the dude's body was messed up, so now he controls it from a distance. It's pretty cool and emotional, and it makes you like the character. And in addition, we get Panda's backstory with that whole being a cursed corpse, and I'm like, because in the opening, I think in the second part, they kind of like show like the principal of the Tokyo school like hanging out with a baby panda, and I like how they're it was something that came up earlier in the episodes. Panda is not a panda.
Yes.
And he most
And
certainly
I was like, what the fuck do you mean?
yeah, he most certainly is not a panda. And he's so cool. The fight between Mechamaru and Panda was awesome. It was pretty quick. Panda ends up winning, but it was a really great fight, and it seems like they become good friends at the end of it. They're like, you know what? Like, hey, we're not too different. Why don't we hang out? And I'm like, wow. I'm like, this is pretty sick. I'm like, they do a very good job of balancing, like, not overly sappy emotional stuff, but more just like friendship stuff with entertaining fighting. And at the same time, Mechamaru was like full on, like, if I have to kill you, I'm going to kill you. But that was a really good fight, so let's be homies.
Yeah, respect gained on both sides. It was nice. And that is the end of this part of the review. Joe, I gotta say, this was the play. I'm very happy that we began watching this after what the fuck did we watch before this? The anime, Netflix anime.
Yasuke.
Yasuke. Yeah, I'm like I needed this in my life. If I'm being honest.
Yeah, I wanted to ask you. So, 1 through 8, you were like, okay, it seems interesting. It's pretty cool. Whatever, nothing crazy.
Yeah.
At episode 16, how do you feel right now?
Yeah, episode 16. I'm definitely. I've obviously seen the entirety of it, so I know where it's leading. But just looking at this chunk, I remember watching up to this point and being like, no, I want to continue watching this now. Like, I really want to keep going. Again, the fights, the stuff earlier with Junpei and Mahito and Kento and Yuji and like all those guys fighting, that stuff I got real invested in. To the point where I was actually kind of angry when Junpei actually ended up being dead. I was like, no, I want more of Junpei. But I guess that's just good storytelling. It's like you made me want more of that. And then all this stuff with the sister exchange event, it's off to a great start, and I'm just like, okay, I am ready. Give me the rest. So, yeah, if I was sitting at like a 6 out of 10 for the beginning of Jujutsu Kaisen, right now I'm currently sitting at like a 7.5. Like, it's boosted up. It's boosted me up, and I'm like, I have more interest and I'm more excited. And then we'll have to wait and see what I think about the final third and the entire thing overall next time.
Yeah, no, I think this show does a very good job of jumping between, I guess, quote unquote arcs. Like, first couple of episodes are, Junji getting his powers, some of the Kyoto students being like introduced, and then also like the unregistered special grades, and then it moves into the whole Junpei Mahito thing, and then it jumps back into the sister school exchange event, and then after basically this when we get into the third part, there's a little bit after the sister school exchange event, but it does this nice job of where it's like like let's use Bleach for an example, where they have their arcs and it feels so forced, and it's in quote unquote arc, where in this doesn't feel like you could jump around and be like, oh, episode 9 through whatever, this fight happens. But in reality, the whole show is very, very, or at least the first season, or up until this point, very, very cohesive.
Yes.
Well, Joe, next week we're talking about part 3. I'm excited. Get us out of here. Let's go to bed.
Yeah, that's good. I'm very tired now. Okay, everyone. So that was Jujutsu Kaisen episodes 9 through 16, part 2. Hopefully you enjoyed our goofy little recap of all the bullshittery in that. Again, make sure to tune in next week. I promise next week for what should we call it, part 3, where we will talk about the conclusion of it all. Make sure to leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, all the normal YouTube bullshittery, and watch Jujutsu Kaisen along with us. Like, you know, like to break it up into chunks. It's very digestible like that. Yeah. So we'll love you. We'll leave everyone, and goodbye. We're going to bed. Mwah.